Yo, what's good with y'all? It's Keymajor back with another video for y'all today. Today me breaking down this dark ethnic sample, showing you guys all the KONTAKT banks that I use, including this one super fire free one. And yeah, just breaking down the sample, so let's get straight to it. Alright, so how I started this sample was with this choir right here. So how I made this choir, I actually had two things stacked on top of each other. I first started with this KONTAKT bank called Voices of Gaia, and it has a bunch of vocal phrases, but also you could play like, you know, chords and legato notes or whatever you want to call it. And I clicked in this melody. First started this with this very simple melody I had in my head, and then after that I just wanted to layer some chords underneath it to make it sound more warm and full. So I just laid down the root note, which is E, and I copied it up 7, which is a very simple trick I always do to help me build chords. And then I chopped it up and then I put it up to C, messing around with these notes that are right next to each other. This causes a lot of tension, makes your samples very dark. And then just took that same E, copied up an octave, and also layered it with this F sharp right here to make this section a little more full as well. For the effects, I just had this EQ cutting out some of the highs because it was kind of harsh, and I just lowered down the lows to make room for the other instruments as well. Next, I layered that with this wind phrase from my Sounds of Aviothic Tools kit. So what I did is I just dragged it in and I reversed it, and then I chopped it up and sped it up a little bit, and I just combined those into this layer, and I added no effects after that. Next, I added these two violin phrases. So the way I added these violin phrases is I went to this KONTAKT bank, the Joshua Bell violin. This is probably my favorite violin bank. I really recommend it. It comes with a bunch of fire sounds, but the real sauce is the key switches in here. So what I like to do is, instead of clicking it in, I like to arm it to the mixer track and then just record the audio into the playlist. And the reason why I do that is because when you're messing around with all these key switches, it likes to add these little artifacts and textures and glides. The textures and slides and all that stuff are always going to be playing at a different time. They're always going to sound different. So I like to just record it in several times until I get it perfect and I get the glide right where I want it and just make it sound all nice. So the way I did this first one is I just used this harmonic one right here. So I'll just hold down that note and then I'll just click in whatever melody I want. And then for the second one I did that as well. And another thing I did is for this second recording, I tried to create a very small like harmony where I just have this very basic top melody, and then under it I like to layer some other notes and just make it sound a lot better, a lot more full. All I did is I lowered this one in the background like I said, and then I panned this one to the right, and then I panned this one to the left. And then for the effects, I just added this pancake to pan them a little bit more, and this EQ cutting out these harsh frequencies and then raising the highs. Now next I use this bank right here, the Wild Mothers Dulcimer Volume 2, I think that's how you pronounce it. Now this is the bank I'm talking about that's completely free. I got it from Piano Book. I have a link to it in the description down below. It comes with several presets, all fire, all sound very realistic. I use this plug preset and then I went in here, and as you can tell, everything is very off the grid and the velocities are all over the place. So I played it with my MIDI keyboard to make it sound even more realistic. After I went in and probably tweaked it a little bit, but very little, as you can tell. Another thing about this bank is that the velocities affect it, but make sure you utilize the velocity when you use this bank because it makes it sound really realistic. It makes it come to life. But yeah, I just played this very simple pattern on my MIDI. I was just laying down my root note, and then I just had a pattern in the middle to make it sound more full, and then obviously the catchy top melody on top. And I just tried to arpeggiate all of them, constantly having notes playing. That's what gives it a lot of rhythm. And then obviously the velocity, like I keep saying, gives it the most rhythm. It makes it sound the best. And then the effects, I just have this RC20 Vinyl 1 preset to make it sound more old, warm, and vintage. And then the same thing with this EQ, just taking out some of the highs so it's a lot more filtered out. Next, I took that same layer and just half-timed it. and then just threw this EQ on top of it, which was the only effects I added. Lastly, I went back to that violin and I added these other little phrases. And same thing for the violin, I just went in and I utilized these key switches and I just played random notes that sounded well, and I had no effects on either of these. And then this was the final layer that I added with that same violin. Yeah, for this mode, it's very simple. I used no key switches. I just had the sound just how it was raw, and I just played these simple notes. And then this is the EQ I threw on top. That was pretty much it. The very final tweaks I did is the panning certain things left and right, whether it was in the mixer or in the channel rack. A very simple arrangement, just making sure every part was something new. And on the master, I just pitched it up one and I detuned it by 40 cents. I used this EQ, just cleaning it up a little bit, and then I had this soft cover just making it louder, and that was pretty much it. I exported it, and this is the final sample. So that was pretty much it. Hope you guys did enjoy and learn something new from this video. Really, everything is simple. I really focus on sound selection. I always say this in my videos that sound selection is #1. But if you pick really good sounds, then you don't really have to do much with the effects. I mean, my effects are so simple. EQ, EQ, pancake, EQ, EQ, EQ. It's just the same stuff over and over. Link in the description to my website. I have a bunch of kits on there for a very cheap price, including some are completely free with a bunch of phrases, drums, one-shots, samples, whatever you need. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next video.